Welcome back. Today we're going to be conducting part 1 of our 55 grain shootout here on the Tennessee Rifleman. In previous tests, the 55 grain ammunition that we've tested thus far, let's try it again. In previous tests, the 55 grain ammunition that we've shot through the Steyr AUG thus far has been lackluster, to say the least. In fact, the best grouping I was able to get was from Tula, or Tool Ammo if you want to be very precise, with their 55 grain full metal jacket, which gave an absolutely staggering 4.6 minute of angle. To be fair, all the ammo I've tested thus far has been certainly in the affordable category, and I want to try to give more different rounds that I would classify as training ammunition a chance to see how they work through this rifle. Now, what do I consider training ammunition? Well, of course, anything full metal jacket or ammunition primarily meant to be shot at a target for either training or potentially competition in some way, shape, or form. I'm not looking at ammunition that's been specifically designed for self-defense or hunting. I'll get into that next week with the next video. First up, we're going to shoot the Tula again and see how it performs today under these conditions. It's quite a bit colder out here, and by colder I mean it's 90 degrees as opposed to, say, 106. Additionally, the wind has died down a little bit with about 4 to 8 mile per hour gust of wind. And of course, as soon as I say that, the wind starts up. So we're gonna fire 5 rounds at our target that's 100 yards away, and we'll go down and see how it performs under these conditions. The results from the Tulammo are certainly not impressive. For the greatest spread, going from bottom to top gives us an extreme of 7.5 inches. Assuming you discount this upper one as a flyer, you're looking at 5 inches overall for the group. Certainly not impressive by any way, shape, or form, but I guess that's what you can potentially expect out of 26-cent steel-cased ammunition. One of the comments that I routinely hear when shooting a poor group with ammunition are questions involving, can I actually shoot? I did a previous video in which I addressed this, and you can click the card up at the top of the screen if you want to check that out. But for brevity's sake, and for those who are new to this channel, and this is the first video of mine you've watched, I have been most accurate consistently with this Australian Outback 69 grain Sierra Match King. So I happen to have a magazine inside my carrying case that had 4 rounds in it. It's not the normal 5-round group that I do, but I'll shoot this so you can at least get an idea of how accurately I can shoot. As expected, the Australian Outback 69 grain Sierra Match King performed quite well. The extreme spread is 1.53 inches. The average I've got from the numerous tests that I've done in previous videos has given me an average of about 1.6 inches at 100 yards. Also, it is worth noting that this was only 4 rounds as opposed to my usual 5, and we're still getting roughly within the same average. A 5th round may have increased it slightly, who knows, but you can be the judge out of the accuracy that you can expect from both me as well as my AUG when given a good round. All right, we're getting into uncharted territory now as far as rounds. We're starting with some PMC Bronze 55 grain full metal jacket ammunition. This is what I would consider within the affordable category. You've got a fairly plain looking box with the rounds just stuffed into the top of it, fairly cheaply done. With that being said, I'm actually fairly surprised at how nice these rounds look. They're very clean, and they look like they're actually fairly well made. I've never shot this stuff, so I'm gonna load up 5 rounds in my AUG. We're gonna test it out and see how it performs. The PMC Bronze ammunition has certainly performed better than any other 55 grain projectile that we have tested thus far. The extreme spread from here to here is 3.4 inches or 3.4 minutes of angle at 100 yards. Generally, what I'm looking for with ammunition of this quality and price is to perform at around 3 minutes of angle at 100 yards. So while this hasn't quite met expectations, it's certainly close. Up next is the Fiocchi Extrema line of their 55 grain polymer tip boat tail bullet. As you can see here, it of course has a polymer tip, as the name suggests, on the end of it. Now, looking up the reading on Midway USA, it states that the ballistic polymer tip helps increase accuracy and also promote devastating expansion. I'm unable to test the expansion portion of that, but we're certainly going to test for accuracy. I'll go ahead and load up 5 rounds and see what it can do. It appears that the ballistic tip definitely made a difference in terms of accuracy. With the Fiocchi Extrema 55 grain ammunition, we have an extreme spread of 1.8 inches. Up next is Hornady's loading of a 55 grain full metal jacket. We've previously tested Hornady Frontier 55 grain, which did not perform in a particularly impressive manner. Maybe this loading will. I'll go ahead and load 5 of these rounds and find out. The Hornady 55 grain full metal jacket gave a fairly impressive grouping of 2.25, which is more than I could really ask for a full metal jacket to perform from a prone supported position. It's a little hard to see the impacts of the rounds on here, so I'll point it out from left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and number 5. So certainly a fairly impressive group that exceeds my expectations of a full metal jacket 55 grain round performing at about 3 minutes of angle. The final 55 grain ammunition that we're going to be testing today is this Lapua 55 grain full metal jacket ammunition. Lapua is a brand that needs very little introduction. They make very high quality brass, high quality bullets, and you pay certainly a high price for this quality. Now, does the performance and accuracy justify the price? I'm going to load 5 rounds and find out. The results that we got with the Lapua are 3.3 inches from here to here. Certainly not an impressive performance. Just to make sure this was not me and is the actual round itself, I'll post another target up and I'll shoot it again with another 5 rounds. Here are the results for our second shooting of the Lapua 55 grain full metal jacket. We have an extreme spread of 2.65 minutes of angle. Certainly an improvement from last time, but not meeting expectations for a bullet of this price. I finished shooting for the day and you've seen the results of the 55 grain ammunition that we tested. I'm going to go home, put all of the information together, and give some conclusions. I've completed calculating the results of shooting these various 55 grain loadings, and as usual, there are some surprising results. Now, before we get into the data, one caveat. I had some trouble with the footage of me shooting the Hornady and Lapua 55 grain full metal jacket rounds, and I discovered this during editing the video. In case you were wondering, I shot both of them using the same method as all previous rounds tested in this video. For those who haven't seen this spreadsheet before, I've got the 55 grain loadings, in addition to a 62 grain Hornady Frontier and an Australian Outback 69 grain Sierra Match King displayed for comparison in both accuracy and price. For the most part, the 55 grain ammunition that I tested in this video was rather unimpressive, with one notable exception. The Fiocchi 55 grain polymer tip boat tail was absolutely outstanding in accuracy and is certainly a very affordable offering. I previously stated that I would use Hornady Frontier's 62 grain boat tail hollow point, and that was for training ammunition 300 yards and in. Well, based on the results of the Fiocchi, my mind has absolutely changed regarding this. For exactly 1 penny more per round compared to the Hornady Frontier, you can have a loading that, in my case, proved to be about 30% more accurate. Getting down to Hornady and Lapua's offerings, both of them performed reasonably well for a full metal jacket, within my expectation of 3 minutes of angle, but if you look at the price per round, I simply can't justify using them in my case. They're simply too expensive, and I can't justify spending more money for a training round that performs at a lower level than some cheaper rounds on the list, such as the Australian Outback or the Fiocchi. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Will these results change what rounds you might try in the future? If so, leave a comment below letting me know the answer. Also, subscribe so that you can be notified of when I conduct part 2 of the 55 grain shootout, where I will test some more specialized rounds and see how they perform. Look to see that up next week. Have a great day.
You're still around. Cool. What I want to go ahead and do is show off the area I'm shooting, just so everyone's able to see it. It's definitely quite beautiful. This has really nothing to do with any of the performance of any of the ammunition, but figured you guys might be interested in just seeing the general surroundings that I'm looking at every time I come out here to shoot. See you guys next time.